Good morning, everybody. You made it through the maze that is Houston during the Houston Marathon. Just a quick shout out. I know of at least one person who participated in the marathon today, Rachel Sears, so I just want to mention her name real fast. Yay. Anybody know of anybody else that is doing the marathon today?
My nieces.
Yay, good for them. Well, let's all reach out to our folks and make sure they're recuperating well and congratulate them on their achievement. It's a great thing. So I am Jennifer Payton. This is Houston Oasis. We are a group of compassion and reason. We have our core values here. I would like to especially emphasize today that meaning comes from making a difference. I think that's going to be really appropriate in the next few years. So, today's schedule is we're going to have a couple of songs from our musician, Hank Woji. We really love it when he comes. He gives us some great music. Then we're not going to do a coffee break right after that. We're not having a community moment. We'll have a panel discussion with our attorneys here who are going to talk to us about what we can do when we're stopped by law enforcement, what our rights are. Another thing that might be more important in the next few years than maybe we realized. And then we will have a coffee break after the panel discussion, and then we'll have a Q&A after the panel discussion. And we'll have another song by Hank. So, let's see, what do I need to do here? I need for everybody to silence your phones so we don't have any interruptions, and I will let Hank take it away.
Good morning. It's always good to be back here. Could you guys have made it a little warmer, though? I mean, you know. That's all right. I'm heading to Florida in a week, so I'll be fine. Shouldn't have told you that. Here's a song of redemption and second chances. I'll be leaving in the morning, westward bound, I'm sure you know. There ain't much time left for talking, so honey, do you want to go? Some say the highway let's roll those dice one more time. This road, it won't go on forever, but it might just last a good long ride. So don't look back, it's just a pocket full of roses. Don't look back, it's just a fistful of thorns. Don't look back, broken hearts will all be mended. Don't look back, broken spirits be reborn. Now there's no chance in taking chances. There's no dream that can't be dreamed in a world so unexpected. Won't you take a chance on me? 'Cause we've seen enough to know better. Throwing all caution to tasted sweet wine and the bitter fruit. Lost enough times to know what it really means to win. So don't look back, it's just a pocket full of roses. Don't look back, it's just a fistful of thorns. Don't look back, broken hearts will all be mended. Don't look back, broken spirits be reborn. I'll be leaving in the morning, westward bound, I'm sure you know. There ain't much time left to talk, so honey, do you wanna go? Don't look back, it's just a pocket full of roses. Don't look back, it's just a fistful of thorns. Don't look back, broken hearts will all be mended. Don't look back, broken spirits be reborn. Here's a little road song. My van just clicked over 500,000 miles. Yeah. Change the oil. Gotta keep changing that oil. So here's the last 450,000 miles of my life in about 3.5 minutes. Tires softly singing along Lonesome Highway. I ramble back home, only God, He knows when. White lines guide me, miles fall behind me, and I'm chasing my headlights again. Stopping again. Peach pie reminds me of somewhere I've been. The waitress says, honey, you look kind of weary. And I'm chasing my headlights again. My sweet Tallahassee, you found your way deep in my soul. My sweet Tallahassee, was it more than my heart that you stole? A good gig in Memphis, tip jar was soup. Felt just like dancing on the head of a pin. The bartender told me that song really touched me, and I'm chasing my headlights again. White lines to guide me, miles fall behind me, and I'm chasing my headlights again. Chasing my headlights again.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to have our panel discussion with Lora Morgan, Angie Moore, Laisha Harris, and Tiera Johnson Williams. So if they would come on up. And I'll let them introduce themselves so you can put the face with the name. Thank you all very much for being here.
Hi, everyone. A lot of you guys know me as an Oasis member. My name's Lora Morgan. I'm also a criminal defense attorney, and I am here with a few other criminal defense attorneys that I have been very fortunate to have the mentorship over the last couple years of. They run a legal boot camp project, which Laisha's going to talk more about in a second, but we got together to do a little collaboration and put this presentation together for you guys.
Good morning. My name is Laisha Harris. This is Tiera Johnson Williams and Miss Angie Moore down there at the end. Like I said, we met with Lora while she was interning at our office. So the legal boot camp is essentially a community curriculum on certain principles of the law. While I was studying in law school, I realized that there is a lot of stuff that only attorneys know, but it would be really helpful if the community knew these things so that they could actually be productive, law-abiding citizens. So it's a 8-course program, about 2 days if you wanted to take it all together, but it goes over why voting is important, who are the people you're actually voting for in local elections, not federal ones, because the local ones are the ones that where our votes actually really matter. What to do when you're interacting with the police, you guys will get a piece of that today. And there's also certain principles about your rights and then how to navigate the criminal justice system if you do get arrested. So there will be a QR code at the end if you guys wanted to register, if you wanted to learn more information about it. What we would do is we would come to your venue, we would go over the program kind of like we're doing today, but we would just have a little bit more time. So I'm excited to be here.
You already introduced us. Yeah, we'll do that part. Yeah. Oh, so now we're going to jump right in then. So I am going to talk about 2 things. When the police, when you encounter the police on the streets, and when you are pulled over by the police. So we're going to talk about just general principles, and then some do's and don'ts in both situations. So they have 3 different types. There's a consensual encounter, and then, of course, you can be detained and arrested. There's different things. The consensual encounter is an officer just comes up to you, starts asking you questions, and you can either answer or not. You'll learn why you should not today, if you don't already know. And then there's detention, and that's when the officers in some type of investigation, they're asking you questions that might lead them to have probable cause to arrest you. And then, of course, there's the arrest. So the first thing we talk about is how long can you be detained? There's no specific time. It has to be reasonable. Why do officers detain? Either A, they have a warrant to arrest you, which means there's no way you can talk yourself out of it, or B, they are encountering you to detain you, ask you questions to develop the probable cause so that they can ultimately arrest you. That being said, what do we need to do when we encounter the police on the streets? You always keep your hands visible. You don't want to pose a threat to any officer or have an officer think that you might be posing a threat. We need to always exercise our Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Sometimes people think when it comes to officers, you feel like compelled to just spill the beans. Well, you don't have to do that. They have a job to do, and you should let them do their job, and you exercise the rights, your constitutional right to remain silent. Now, there are two minor exceptions to that. Excuse me. You have to give them your identifying information. That's your name, your address, your date of birth, so they can identify you. That's something that's non-negotiable. If you don't do that, then you can be arrested and charged with failure to ID. And then you have to give them, and it has to be accurate information. Failure to ID, another branch of it that is even worse. They're both misdemeanors, but if you just don't tell them anything, if you refuse to talk, then it's a Class B. And then if you, I'm sorry, Class C, but then if you decide to lie to them and give them the wrong information, then it's a Class B. Generally, unless there's enhancements and all that other stuff that we're not going to get into today. Excuse me. Another you always exercise your Fourth Amendment right against unlawful searches and seizures. Sometimes police will encounter you and they have the right, they can lie to you. So they can say, you know, we're doing this investigation and there was a shootout and we just want to check your bag to make sure you don't have a weapon. Well, what if you happen to have something else in there that they might consider contraband or something to that effect? Well, now you've given them the probable cause by allowing them to search your bag. So you should always exercise your right, your Fourth Amendment right against searches and seizures, unlawful searches and seizures. And we'll get into that a little bit more when I start talking about what happens when you are pulled over. So the do nots. When you are approached by an officer on the street, you do not want to engage in a consensual encounter. How do you determine whether or not it's consensual? You ask them, are you free to go? If you are free to go, then you are free to go and you should go. If you are being detained, then they won't let you go. But then, like I said, that's when we exercise our right to remain silent. If they have a warrant, then of course, you still exercise your right to remain silent, but you will be arrested. But like I said, there's nothing you can say. A judge has already signed off on this warrant. They have an order to arrest you. They're going to do it. You can't really talk yourself out. Just be quiet and let the process be the process. Of course, do not allow them to search. You have the right to say no, and you should say no to any type of search. Do not resist. That's another charge. You could be charged with resisting arrest. You don't want to mouth off. Sometimes people get upset and they mouth off to officers. Depending on what you say, it can be a real problem. I worked overnight and we had that problem where a defendant decided to say the wrong thing to the judge and got a retaliation charge, which is a felony. So you don't want to mouth off. You do not want, sometimes people run, their immediate instinct is to run. You don't want to do that. Because even if you're on foot, it's a misdemeanor, but it's called evading arrest. So you never want to run from the police officers. Of course, I shouldn't have to say it, but people do it. So you do not want to spit or hit or kick, because that's an assault against a peace officer. You don't want those problems in life. That's a felony as well. You do not want to talk at all, even to yourself when you're in the back of the car, because everything is recorded. So they have dash cam recording what's going on inside that car. Even if the officers are nowhere close to you, they have in-car camera and then they have dash cam, so that you can be further away, but they can still catch what you're saying, even if you're talking to yourself like, oh, I shouldn't have done this. And you never want to make res gestae statements. What is that? A statement that is made without a question being asked. Like, I shouldn't have done this, or it wasn't my weed. Whatever you say, that type of stuff, even though that can be admissible in court because it wasn't in response to a question being asked. So it's not like you were under some type of custodial interrogation. You just offered this information, it's fair game, and it will be used against you. I'm trying to go as fast as possible. I guess I should have paid attention to the time. So now on to traffic stops. General principles, you want to always have your license, and as soon as you're pulled over, you want to make sure your license and your registration, your insurance, they're all available, readily accessible, and within hand's reach, so officers can see your hands, but you can give that to them right away. You want to listen to them. They typically verbalize the reason why they stopped you. Sometimes they'll get slick and start asking you questions. Hey, do you know why we stopped you? You don't have to play guess with them. I mean, just exercise your right to remain silent. You want to say nothing more other than, like I said, that identifying information that is required. You have to give them your ID. You have to tell them your name, your address, your date of birth. Other than that, you don't have to answer anything, and you shouldn't. Sometimes, and we'll get into, I'm going to talk really quickly about, like, sometimes it's in a DWI stop, but sometimes they'll ask you, like, you know, where are you coming from? Where are you going? Have you had anything to drink? Those questions are the worst questions to answer, and I'll talk about that later, but you don't have to answer, and you shouldn't answer those questions. Of course, just like if you were on the streets, you want to always keep your hands visible. You want to exercise both your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent and your Fourth Amendment right against unlawful searches and seizures. I did say I was going to elaborate a little bit more on that. So in order for an officer to search you, to either search your person or to search your vehicle or your property, they have to either A, have a warrant to search, they have to have what they call probable cause to search, or it has to be a search incident to arrest. If they're arresting you, they can search, and then they can search your vehicle after they're arresting you. It's called an inventory search, just to I guess, identify the items that are in your car, and they write them all down. So those are the different ways to get to a search. Those are the ones, and you can't control those searches. But like I said, they can lie to you to incentivize you or to coerce you into consenting to a search. You never want to do it. There's no reason to do their job for them. If they had the authority to search, they wouldn't be asking you. They would just do it. So know that if they're asking you, the answer should be no. Have them, do the work. Sometimes they do the whole good cop, bad cop. You'll have, like, one officer being super, super nice and the other one being mean, and that's a tactic, a common tactic that they use to try to get you to consent to searches. The same thing, like the do nots, no consensual encounters. You don't have to say anything more. In this case, if you try to run off, it becomes a felony. If you're and it could just be a felony evading arrest, but I have a case right now where the guy, he got scared and he jumps in his car and he drives away, but the officer tries to chase after him and she grabs his shirt and then she falls to the ground, and now he's charged with aggravated assault against a public servant with a deadly weapon, and the deadly weapon is the vehicle. That's a first-degree felony. Big problems, and he's a kid too. But that's what happened. He just got scared. Even if you're scared, you never want to get in that car and drive away. That's an automatic felony. And of course, let me talk about DWIs really quickly. So a lot of times officers, I used to be a prosecutor before I was a public defender, and I was in charge of writing blood warrants. That's when somebody is pulled over for a DWI investigation. Typically it's going to be like some type of traffic violation. You're weaving or you're speeding. So the officer will have reason to detain you just to conduct the traffic investigation. But then they ask you those questions like, where you're coming from, where you're going, what time, did you have anything to drink? How many drinks did you have? So those questions, give them the probable cause. So if you don't, ultimately you have two choices. You can, they ask you if you're willing to blow into a breathalyzer, and they ask you if you're willing to consent to have your blood drawn. Those are two ways that they can determine what your blood alcohol content is. Well, excuse me, if you don't consent to those, if you don't consent to the blood, and if you don't consent to breath, then the only other thing they can do is ask the court to sign a warrant to get your blood. Now, how do you get the warrant? By articulating probable cause that leads the court to believe that you might be intoxicated. That's where those questions come in. Those questions that you're just answering, that is establishing the probable cause. Where you're going, when was your last drink? Sometimes the crime is driving while intoxicated, so they have to prove that when you were driving, you were intoxicated. And if they don't have the blood alcohol content, they can do what's called extrapolation. And in extrapolation, those questions that you're answering, they can use that, experts can use that to determine what your blood alcohol content was. don't answer those questions. If you don't answer those questions, I wouldn't have what it takes to draw a warrant. They have standard field sobriety tests that they ask you to do. If you don't do those standard field sobriety tests, then they don't have that to use against you. Now, let me just put a disclaimer out there. I'm not telling everybody to go drink and drive, and I'm suggesting that you use Uber or Lyft. But if you find yourself in a situation, you do not want to make the circumstances even worse for yourself. I think that's all I have. I think that's it. Who's next?
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about what's going to happen if the police show up at your house. There are 3 basic ways that they can gain entry into your house. That first one is with a warrant. That second one is what we call exigent circumstances. And the third way is going to be with your consent. So I'm going to talk about each one of those in turn. So starting with the warrant. If the police come to your house with a warrant, you can ask them to see that warrant, and then they can come into your house. Or you can just wait for them to force their way into your house, but they will be coming in and executing that warrant one way or another. So when they come into your house, don't try to keep them from executing the warrant. Don't resist them in any way. Just be quiet, except for identifying yourself, as Tiera has already said. And they might detain you while they are executing that warrant. They might say, you have to stay right here, you can't go anywhere. They might even handcuff you. They're allowed to do that. Now, that second way, exigent circumstances, that can mean a few different things. So one thing that could mean is there's an ongoing emergency. So if the police, reasonably believe that someone in the house is injured or needs their help, then they can force their way into the house to provide assistance. They won't need a warrant or permission for that. A second type of exigent circumstance is going to be called hot pursuit. So if you run away from the police or someone else is running from the police and they run into your house or another house, the police can follow them in there. They can force their way in there behind them. There's not a hard and fast rule as to how far the police have to be behind you for hot pursuit to apply, but generally around 15 minutes is accepted. And then the third type of exigent circumstance you might have would be evidence destruction. So say the police come to your house, they're knocking on the door, and you don't want to answer the door because you don't want to talk to them. That's fine, that's your right. But if while you're inside, you start rushing around inside and it sounds to the police from the outside like you're in there destroying evidence, trying to get rid of things, then you may accidentally create exigent circumstances where they think evidence is being destroyed and they can force their way in. So then we have the third type with your consent. So if they don't have a warrant and there's no exigent circumstances, then they need your permission to come into your house. So again, you don't have to answer the door for them. You don't have to talk to them. But if you do want to talk to them, you should step outside of your house and close the door behind you to talk to them. If they ask to come in, you tell them no. If they ask to conduct any kind of search, you tell them no. Now, I'm going to say, if you do let them into your house, please don't do that. But if you do, there are some things that you should know. The first thing we call plain view. So if you let the police into your house, they're now in a place they're legally allowed to be because you've given them permission, and they can seize anything that they see in their plain view that is illegal. And plain view just means that they didn't have to pick anything up or move anything to see it. So these cards are not in plain view right now, but now they are. So they wouldn't be allowed to move something to see it, but that's how plain view works. And keep in mind, under those exigent circumstances, if something's in plain view while they're coming into your house under exigent circumstances, same thing applies. They can seize that stuff and you can be charged for having it. Another thing I want to talk to you about is revoking your consent. So let's say that you gave the police permission to come into your house, but now you want them to leave. You can revoke your consent and ask them to get out. Keep in mind, though, that if while they were lawfully in there with your consent, they saw things in their plain view, they can still seize those items and you can still be charged for them even though you've asked them to get out and you've revoked your consent now. And then I also want to talk about limiting your consent. So let's say the police come to your house and they say, hey, can we look inside and see if there's a stolen bicycle in here? And you say, well, you can come into my living room and look and see if there's a bicycle in here, but that's it. So you've limited your consent. Now, just keep in mind, your safest thing to do is not to talk to the police, not to let them into your house, and not to agree to any kind of search. Basically, if the police need your permission to do something, they're not gonna waste a lot of time trying to get it. They're just gonna do it. So, if you think the police are doing something wrong that they're not allowed to do, don't try to stop them from doing that. Don't physically resist them in any way. Just say that they don't have your permission, that you're saying no to this, and then let your lawyer sort it out at the end.
Hi, good morning. I'm Angie Moore. I'm going to talk to you about if you called the police. Because sometimes, things will happen and you're like, you know what, I'm going to dial 911. I'm calling for the police. Okay, so you can give them your information because they're going to say, oh, what's your name? Where are you from? You can give all that information. But you can also not give that information. You can just say, hey, I want to report that this is what's going on, and it's going on at the block of Main and West Street, and just leave it at that. They're going to come, okay? 911 is going to be able to track it back, like, well, this is the number that it came from. But at least if you don't give your information, it's kind of protecting yourself a little from being involved, right? Then there's the time when you're calling 911 because maybe you're having some sort of issue at your home. When you call 911 and you say, hey, I need the police, I need them to come to my house. As Laura previously stated, don't let them in your house. Be outside. Be that person that is standing on the curb waiting for the police to show up. So you can have that discussion with them outside. Because as Laura previously stated, if you wait in your house, they're gonna knock on the door, you're gonna open the door, and maybe you think that you're gonna, well, I'll step outside once they get there. But once you open the door, trust and believe, there's gonna be one police officer that's staring you dead in your face, and they're giving you all their attention. But they're gonna have a partner with them that's looking around. Do I see, from this front door, can I see anything? Do I see a gun on the table? Do I see a gun hanging over the fireplace? Because maybe, hey, we have guns in this house. Little things like that, whatever they see, as she stated, it's in plain view, and all the things that they see are items that they can use for probable cause. So most of the time when people are calling 911 and they're saying, bring the police to my house, there might be an issue in the home with somebody that's in the home. Might be a friend, might be a family member, might be a partner, and you're thinking in your mind, you know what, I'm tired of arguing with you about whatever, I'm calling the cops and they're gonna make you leave. So what you need to know is they don't always make the person leave. They're gonna come out there and you're gonna say whatever you said, but that other person's gonna say whatever they have to say. And when they talk to everyone, they're gonna do it separately. So you have full control over what you say, but you don't have control over what that other person is gonna say. And before you know it, the tables have now turned. You're the one that dialed 911, but now you're the one getting arrested because that other person said whatever they said to the police. And then you're saying, oh, well, they're lying, and they're saying that you're lying, and then it becomes a thing. So that's why I just beg of people to really think about what you're doing. Really ask yourself, what is my purpose in calling the police? They are law enforcement. It's their job to what? Enforce the law. They enforce the law by looking for laws that have been broken. They are not social workers. They are not therapists. They are not this entity that's gonna make, whoever you're having a disagreement with in your house, once the police gets here, that's what's gonna make you start behaving. That's what's gonna make you apologize for whatever you just did. You wanna have police presence because you have some other thing that you really want this person to do. Rest assured, when they show up, somebody is getting arrested every time because that's their job. Their job is to enforce the law. Their job is to make arrests. That's how they prove that they're not just sitting in the cop car eating donuts and drinking coffee. They say, hey, I went to this house and someone called and said there was an incident and hey, we did something. We arrested somebody. Additionally, if, let's say, once the police show up, now maybe the issue has started to die down a little because now we see those flashing lights at the curb. They will still move forward with whatever you said on 911. Whatever you told the 911 operator, he hit me. They're moving forward with that. When they show up and now you're like, oh shoot, well, I don't want you to go to jail. So he didn't hit me. He didn't hit me. Doesn't matter. You've already said it on the 911 call, which is evidence. And anything you say can and will be used against you, and they'll still move forward. When you tell the police, oh, look, I don't want them to be arrested, they will still arrest that person. And what they're gonna tell everyone involved is, hey, we think something may have happened because you dialed 911, so y'all can just sort this out in court. And now that person gets arrested, and hey, if they don't have money to bond out, or if they can't get a personal recognizance bond, a free bond, they are in that jail until the case gets resolved. And most prosecutors, they're not in a hurry to dismiss a case or wrap a case up. They could care less that now that you've gotten arrested or your loved one who you had this big argument with is now in jail, and now they could lose their job. Now they have all these other things are going on now because we got into an argument over something like you didn't wash the dishes, or you didn't come home at a reasonable time, things like that. Just be cognizant of what you're doing and always try first to find other resolutions to some of these domestic type issues. There are tons of people in the jail. The jails are full. The majority of the people in the jail, they are in there behind domestic violence issues. That's what the majority of them are in there for. They got in an argument with a partner, their mom, their dad, their sister, their brother, a girlfriend. They got in an argument with someone that they just went on one date with. But if you have any type of romantic type relationship with somebody, just a first date, it's not the same as if you would have had an altercation with a complete stranger. Okay, it's more serious because the law is saying, hey, since you have a close relationship with this person, or you should have a close relationship, you're held to a higher standard to not do things that would be harmful. Let's see. I think I got everything. Again, just please be careful. Also consider your children. That's another reason you want to be outside, okay? Because if your children are in the home, guess what? They become a part of the investigation. The three of us, we have a case right now where we literally watch body-worn camera of a police officer asking a 3-year-old, what happened? Did daddy say anything? What did mommy do? Why are you talking to a 3-year-old? And both of their parents, no one's giving consent for you to talk to this 3-year-old. But they do not care because they're just trying to get to their goal, which is arresting somebody. Okay, so put in your mind the main job duty of a police officer is to make arrests. It's not to work out anybody's romantic issues, family issues. You got a property line issue with your next door neighbor. That's not what they are there to do. They are there to make arrests, and 9 times out of 10, somebody's gonna go to jail. So you just need to make sure that you exert your constitutional rights, like the right to remain silent, the right to demand that they have warrants before they enter your home in order to protect yourself, because very quickly the tables can turn and the person that dialed 911 is now the person getting arrested.
So I'm going to cover what to do when you've been arrested and what to do if police officers violate your rights. So like Angie was mentioning, if you call 911, at some point, somebody is going to be arrested. And you might have been the person who made the call, but if you're even reporting like a theft or some type of property crime and it's not an assault, you very well could also be subject to an investigation depending on what they see around you. So reasonable suspicion just means like, I suspect that criminal activity is happening. That's not enough to make an arrest. Probable cause is, I have specific reason to believe that a crime occurred and I have enough to detain you or arrest you. So if you've been placed in handcuffs, like Tiera mentioned, it's either a detention or an arrest. Some agencies will detain you and ask questions just to see what's going on, but if you're not being arrested, you have the ability to leave. That's the whole detention part. But if you're not free to leave, that means that you're under arrest. So the most important thing to do once those handcuffs are on you is to be silent. Be silent, stay calm, don't engage with them, don't interact with them. If they have enough to take you to JPC, which is the processing center after you get arrested, doesn't matter what you say, you're gonna go there. But like she mentioned, if you start saying things or just randomly making statements or something, that might not be like relevant to why they got there in the first place, but they're gonna take what you say to figure out, okay, what is a good reason why I can arrest this person? Did you actually have consent here? Matter of fact, you can open up your wallet and you have your partner's card or you have somebody else's card in there that's not your name. That's also suspicious because you could have stolen somebody else's information. Why do you have that person's card? So when you've been placed under arrest, be quiet. Don't say anything. You have a constitutional right to remain silent. You have a constitutional right to an attorney. Now, sometimes people think that the officers will say something and he's like, well, you know, if you just help me out and you help explain this, that, and the third, I'll let you go. Like, I mean, it's really not even you that I'm after. I'm really after this. So can you just like help me out and answer my questions? Respectfully, your job is to enforce the law. You do not need to rely on me to make those investigations easier for you. So you can investigate. I do not have to answer your questions and figure that out for you. Again, just being silent, and those are the reasons why. You're not gonna be able to really talk yourself out of it. You're gonna talk yourself into something. And then there's the right to counsel. We work with indigent clients, so clients who are unable to afford lawyers, but you do have the right to have access to an attorney. And if they deny you those rights, which I'll talk about like when they start denying your rights, there's nothing that you can do in that immediate moment to address it. So I hate it because you see it on TV all the time where people are not doing anything wrong, but they're talking to police. They might be loud, they might be aggressive, and the next thing you know, they're being thrown to the ground. They've got a neck on their, or they've got a knee on their chest, or they're being their face is being smushed into the sidewalk. Like, the police officers do that. Sometimes it gets worse because that person is resisting, or they're trying to be like, bro, get off me. This isn't right. This isn't right. While it's not right, there's nothing that we can do in that moment. So I hate that this is how you have to react to those things, but you just let them do it. Because if you don't, you can make the situation worse for yourself. But it's like, if the officer is being the aggressor, if the officer is being the person who's rambunctious and using profanity and being aggressive and things like that, they're supposed to have their body-worn cameras on. So someone's gonna see it. And if the police officer is the person being wild, when they look at that, they're gonna be like, oh, the officer was the person who made the situation worse. It wasn't this person, because they were staying calm. They were minding their business. They weren't actually resisting. They weren't saying the things that the officer is gonna make up and say in order to get that person charged. So it's not the best reaction when it comes to police officers doing the most when they're interacting with people, but it is a tool. And so, at least in Harris County, if you've been placed, if you're been placed under arrest, they have to call the district attorney's office in order to get them to accept charges. If you've been suspected of doing something that's related to domestic violence, they have to call the DA. They can't just walk away. They have to call the district attorney, and 9 times out of 10, they're accepting charges, regardless of whether or not the allegations are credible. But if it's something else, like a criminal mischief, you broke somebody something, or you're trespassing and things like that, those are things that they could let go. But if it has something to do with an assaultive offense, they're going to be making an arrest, but they have to call the DA first. The DA could accept charges, they could not. If they don't accept charges, you can go on about your day. But once you've been placed under arrest, you're gonna be processed, you're gonna get a bond, and then there's the whole process of the criminal justice system, which is another segment, so you guys are gonna have to sign up for that. But what do you do when they violate your rights? Like I said, there's nothing you can do in that immediate moment to make what they're doing stop, like to make them stop doing what they're doing. So you have two outcomes. If what they did was illegal and you were charged with something, the only remedy that you're going to get is that evidence will be suppressed. They're not going to get any reprimands. They're not going to be held accountable because in the criminal justice system, the only remedy for those violations is to suppress the evidence that was a product of their violation. So in the criminal sense, that's all you're going to get. Now, my favorite thing is the 42nd chapter of the United States Code, section 1983. That is the code that allows you to sue agents of the state when they violate your civil rights, your constitutional rights. It happens all the time. But one of the things that really grinds my gears that you heard emphasized with the killing of Mike Brown, if an officer were to take your life and they violated your rights and you sue them, there's this thing called qualified immunity. That means that an officer has good faith or reasonable belief that their actions were aligned with their job. They feared for their life. They had no choice. They had good faith in the actions that they took. They will get qualified immunity and they will not be held financially liable for the offense. Now, it is different in some situations, like when you're thinking about Tamir Rice. If the violation was so egregious, or who killed George Floyd? That was so egregious that they were like, you know what, we're not going to give this person immunity for something. We're going to actually charge them. Tyree Nichols, they saw the abuse. All of them got charged. Now, whether or not they get convicted is another question, but there are opportunities when qualified immunity can be waived, but it sucks because it really only happens in those situations where it's recorded and it's shared with the public. There's a lot of things that the public doesn't see that goes on behind closed doors. If you guys haven't seen that Struck documentary from KHOU, please do, because there's a lot of things that happen behind those doors at the Harris County Jail. There's way too many people dying in there. There's not enough officers being held accountable for their actions that led to that person's death. So, what do you do when police officers violate your rights? You hold your tongue and you try to bear with it. If they mess around and do something that's totally egregious, you can record law enforcement. You should record law enforcement. I like telling everybody's business. If you do something wild, I'm going to tell others because that's the only way to get people really paying attention to those things. And if it's something so egregious, like 30 people dying in Harris County Jail because of law enforcement, you can get Ben Crump on your side and he'll file a lawsuit in a hope that the city or the prosecutors or the attorneys that are on that case will hold them accountable for what they're doing. So. Oh, yes. And then assuming you make it out the situation, you're still mad about what they did, you can always call their manager. You can file a complaint with the Internal Affairs Division. You can do public information requests, like so police officers do something crazy, your case gets dismissed. You can request that information and use that as a reason to file your grievance or your complaint. It'll actually be a part of their record. So even though something might not happen, if he were to do that again, there is a file in that person's record that shows they have a pattern of doing X, Y, Z. And if you're a defense attorney like us, we're subpoenaing those records, and we're gonna make sure that everybody knows you're one of those officers who abuses your power. Why? Because the community is responding to it. You can file complaints with Internal Affairs, you can file a complaint with the department or whatever the agency's person in charge is. And then, of course, there's always the court of public opinion.
Okay, thank you guys. That's the end of our presentation. I think we're gonna take a coffee break and come back for questions and answers, and we have a few cards from a card game we're gonna play.
Before y'all go, real quick, I see a lot of new faces today. I'm a little discombobulated myself, so I didn't say this. I want to welcome everybody to Oasis. If this is your first time We welcome you. We hope you'll visit our visitor desk out there and get some more information about our group. We hope that you will make our gathering a Sunday tradition for yourself. If you are not a first-time Oasis person, you've been here a long time, we want to thank you too for being here. We would not be who we are as a group without you. So thank you very much. So yes, as she said, we're going to have a quick coffee break, and then we'll come back and have more Oasis.
have this law where if you refuse on the side of the road any kind of sobriety test, they take your license away for 6 to 12 months. I don't know.
Hello, hello. Or question and answer. So Hank, take it away.
Thank you. So anyway, I have a quick confession to make. This is funny. In that last song I did, see, songwriters, we use lots of metaphors and literary references and things like that. And as a recovering Roman Catholic, my songs are littered with biblical references and all kinds of things. And so in that last song, I try to stay away from that when I come play here because I believe what we believe, okay? And so I just try to steer clear of all the biblical stuff. And in that last song, I sang the line, I'll ramble back home, only God, he knows when. And I went, oh shit. And so a disclaimer from here on, whenever I appear here, if I use a biblical reference or anything, it's a disclaimer that it does not reflect on my core beliefs. It's simply a literary, what do you call it, poetic license or literary license or something. But anyway, here's a song that has nothing to do with that. It's a song for all of us, our country of immigrants. Come here today to talk about family. Come here today to talk about home. Brothers and sisters, we're in this together. We're all seeking shelter from the same storm. Now some would divide us, false words and confusion. Some prey on our fears, try and lead us astray. But that's just illusion. We are united. We're all seeking truth. Let truth guide our way. Mother of exiles, torch held on high. A light of hope for all to see. Give us your homeless, your tired, your full. All those who yearn to be free. We got to start building bridges, start tearing down walls. It's time to start building bridges, start tearing down walls. We come here today to talk about forgiveness. Come here today to talk about love. Brothers and sisters must come together. Lift up our hearts with a light from above. Sweet Lady Liberty, torch held on high. A golden light for all to see. We are your homeless, your tired, your poor. Here we learn what it means to be free. got to start building bridges, start tearing down walls. It's time to start building bridges, start tearing down walls. And we got to start building bridges, start tearing down walls. It's time to start building bridges, start tearing down walls.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so a lot of people wrote down questions, so we're going to have the panel answer the written questions. Hopefully, we'll answer some of the questions that maybe you've had out there. And then if you still have a question after they've gone through the written questions, then we'll come around and get those. So let's hear what you got.
I'm going to talk really, really fast so we can answer as many as possible. My boyfriend has a theory that if you decline the breathalyzer or sobriety test, cops will arrest you if you've been silent. Is that true? They won't have the probable cause to arrest you. If you deny it and you've been silent, then they don't have the probable cause to arrest you. Now, so typically there's one standard field sobriety test that doesn't require you to say or do anything. You have to follow their instructions. They ask you to, it's called the HGN, where basically your eyes twitch involuntarily, but that's another one you can refuse. Everything, if you refuse, it makes it very hard for them to go to the prosecutor and have and articulate probable cause to write a warrant for the blood. So, yeah, it helps you to refuse. Now, if you're in Montgomery County, this is a little quick caveat. In Montgomery County, typically, like, you can try to get some type of diversion program. They don't let you do diversions if you refuse, so that's just a little caveat. How do we do we have to notify law enforcement that we're recording them, and do they have the right to confiscate the recording? No, they cannot confiscate the recording. You cannot interfere with the investigation, but you can record, and you should record at all times. That's actually, there's a game, our family created this game called Crime No Crime. It's literally like a bunch of these types of questions, but it's in like almost like a taboo type format. I don't drink at all. Is it okay to take a breathalyzer? Can they determine the BAC but just based on behavior? Not necessarily. If you don't drink at all, then you probably, so I don't want to say that, because then you also have, like, some people do like Listerine. There's so many ways around it where you think, oh, well, I haven't been drinking, and then it can okie dokie. So it's probably still better to just not consent. I mean, like I said, they have a job to do. Let them do their job. Do you want to do those?
Yeah. So I'm worried that that not cooperating may imply guilt. How can I exercise my right without making them more suspicious? So there's two parts to how you best navigate. If you've done nothing wrong, like you're the most stand-up, law-abiding citizen. You have nothing in your sock. You have nothing around you, and there's no reason why they would actually take you to jail. Then you still don't cooperate. But if there's just something about you that you know that the officer doesn't know, play it cool. Just only because if it's not supposed to be one of those situations where they just go ahead and arrest you. But if just no, not cooperating cannot suggest guilt unless you are doing something that makes you look suspicious. So if there is something on you and you're just checking your pockets, or you just randomly cover something, or if you're looking kind of nervous and stuff like that, if you just stay calm and don't cooperate, they don't have anything to use against you. And then if they catch on to it, just pray, be silent, or just don't say anything, be quiet, and let it go from there. While being arrested, what if I have some particular medication, or you have some type of medical need? Generally, you can disclose that to them, and they'll make sure, if you've been taken to JPC, that you get access to those medications. I will say that Harris County medical centers are not in the jails are not the most productive. So if you do have those issues, just be sure to front load that with officers. Is it common for them to turn off their body-worn cameras or extract their camera? Is it common? Yes. Should they do it? No. It's a part of their policies to turn on their body-worn cameras whenever they're interacting with the general public. If they don't, it's just a violation. Evidence gets suppressed. They get a little reprimand from their officers, but they are supposed to have it on. If you notice that it's not on because there's no little red dot, ask them to do it and then see how they react. How long does someone usually stay in jail if bond is not paid? Until the bond is paid or until the case is resolved. Is there a standard bond amount for a domestic incident? It's not standard, but they generally determine the bond amount by your criminal history, the nature of the allegations, and allegedly your ability to afford things. If it sounds a lot worse than it really is, then you will likely get a high bond. But if they just say that you grabbed somebody's arm and you scratched her while you did that, or you pushed her in a way that didn't cause pain, you might get a low or a PR bond. If you've never been arrested for an assault before, it's a misdemeanor, unless you're choking someone. But if you have been arrested for assault before, or if you're pregnant and the person assaulted was pregnant, it'll be a felony. Or if it's an elderly or disabled person. There's a lot of nuances between who you want to beat up. So, assault bodily injury is just me and a stranger. Assault family member is an assault between you and somebody that you live with or in a relationship of consanguinity or marriage. And then those are misdemeanors. If you choke somebody, if you assault somebody who's elderly, disabled, pregnant, or a child under the age of 15, those are also felonies. If there's a weapon involved, honestly, a weapon can include very random things that they know to cause serious bodily injury. So it could be a plastic bottle, it could be a cup. Oh, order the magnitude of the bond. I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the, yeah, so we can go into that just a little bit more because bond is really, really nuanced, but I want to get through a couple more of these questions. With regards to the Texas abortion laws and law enforcement, does a call alone constitute sufficient cause to search a residence for abortion medications? No. They need to have no, y'all were throwing me off. Sorry. If they get a call about something that's suspicious, they have to have other facts in addition to their statement in order for that to be sufficient. So if it's just an anonymous call, no. But if there's other circumstantial information that they could use that affirms what that person's statement was, they have enough to investigate. But if they want to come into your house, they're gonna have to get a warrant or get some type of consent, but then also really pay attention to Greg Abbott this next go round because we don't know if those things are going to change. And I will answer these last two last. Angie?
Oh, go ahead. Okay. If you are a witness to an accident, what should you do? You can call 911. You can say what you saw. Write down license plate, like if there's an accident and someone else drives off. Catch the description of the car, the license plate. How many people are in the car? What's the description of the person that was driving? You can get all those things so that when the police come, you can provide that information. But also realize you will be a part of that case. You're a part of that investigation. So the DA is going to want to talk to you about what you saw, and the defense is going to want to talk to you about what you saw. So just keep that in mind. And if something happens with that incident and it goes to trial, you could be subpoenaed to come to court and testify about everything that you saw. And if you interacted, you involved yourself, you helped the person get out the car, or you touched some things in their car, and maybe there's lots of things in their car, right? So now you put some of your DNA in that car too, right? So just be careful. Second question, could refusing to answer seemingly innocuous questions like, how's your day, be viewed as hostile or suspicious enough to have grounds for probable cause? No, but just, when you deal with the police, it is chess. It is not checkers, y'all. It's chess. And don't think that you're making the first move when you start talking. When you start talking, all you're doing is saying, hey, I'm ready to sit down at the table and play. all right? They are setting traps, and you know, you might not have done anything to even be involved, but just know that they're investigating, and they're investigating everybody, even the witnesses. That's why they walk around and will knock on doors and go to other places to see if there are vendors that have camera footage. Everybody, like they say on their little TV shows, everyone's a suspect, right? So just be careful when you're talking to them. Second part, if you said something prior to Miranda rights being issued, can it be used against you retroactively? Remember, police have body-worn cameras on, and they cut them on before they get out of the car. Sometimes the camera's on while they're driving to the scene, okay? So as soon as they get out the car, it's on. So whatever you're saying is being recorded. And most of the time, they are gonna ask you a bunch of questions, right? Because they're setting traps, and then once they feel that they have enough, then it's, okay, we're gonna detain you, and now let me read you your rights. They don't walk up to you and just start talking to you about all your rights before we have this discussion, okay? And your Miranda rights protect what you're about to say. So that you have the right to remain silent, all of that, that's protecting what you're about to say after they've given you that spill. So again, always be careful. If they ask you, how's your day going, just look around. Oh, my day is sunny. Because the sun is up. It's rainy, it's cloudy. You don't have to be, it's horrible because my boyfriend did this and you don't need to do all of that, okay? You can be cordial, nice, respectful, but still be private because you are a private citizen.
HPD does not Mirandize people, so you're not going to get it from them. But the point of just don't say anything. Yes, those statements. If you're in a situation, yeah, so a couple of these questions are just relating to the relationship with police and at what point can you trust them to be there to help and be there for law-abiding citizens. Honestly, the answer to that, how police can do things, why they do things, it's all not like defund the police, but kind of reform what it is that they're doing, redefine what the role of police is, because right now it's law enforcement. They don't have an obligation to help you or to save your life. There was a case about that. If you're drowning, you will die because it's not their job to save you. It's their job to enforce the law. And then if you have more questions afterwards, we'll be here.
Boyd, R, and Green, go. There's a lot of questions. I'm happy to answer any questions that are here after this is over.
All righty, does anybody in the audience have a question? The quickest nugget that I can give you is law of parties. What does that mean? If you surround yourself by somebody who does something that is illegal, and you do anything to aid, assist, or abet in the commission of whatever that crime is, then you can be charged with whatever that other person is charged with. People always, I can't even tell you how many times this happens to young kids, up to murder. Like there's a rule, like that same rule applies to if you're engaging in a felony. Y'all can go decide y'all gonna go rob somebody, and your friend has a gun that you didn't even know that he had, and he shoots somebody and they end up dying. You guys both get charged with murder, just because you did something to aid or assist in the robbery, not even the murder. And sometimes it's friends. We have co-defendants where you get charged with if an officer shoots your co-defendant during the commission of a felony, you get charged with that co-defendant's murder. Your friend's murder, you get charged with. So it's very important to make sure you are surrounding yourself with people that are law-abiding, because you can go down with you can face whatever consequences they face.
And then also just to throw in the drugs just as well, care, custody, and control. If it's in his room and it's closed door and the police officers come in, they're not going to be able to like legally, it's not going to be good enough for the drugs or any contraband from his room to be applied to you. So as long as the contraband is in another space where somebody else has care, custody, and control, then you're going to be fine. But also just be mindful that all schools, including elementary and universities, those are public property that you're not supposed to have those things on. So the including guns and drugs, if you have that on a college campus or any school, it's going to enhance your punishment range because those are drug-free zones and gun-free zones.
And I'd also like to say that if you have a shared space with someone, when we're talking about consent to search that space, either one of you can consent to the search of your shared space, but you can't consent to a search of his room, and he can't consent to a search of your room. Also, if you're both there and the cops want to come in, and one of you is saying no and one of you is saying yes, they can't come in. But if the one who's saying no steps out, leaves to do something, whatever, and then the cops ask the one that's saying yes if they can come in, then they will be able to.
Okay, Stephen, I'm really sorry. I just looked at the time. We are way behind here, and I do have some announcements that I need to make. So I want to thank our panel very much. A lot of good information today. I'm sure they'll hang around. We are having lunch at Cava today, so if you want to join with that, I don't know if y'all will, some of y'all will be there. So we'll have some folks there if you have more things that you want to ask or more discussion you want to have with them. So, real quickly, we have some, going from the really serious and somber to the rather trivial by comparison. We have announcements about our board, the Houston Oasis board. We had two folks that stepped off, Will and Pete Lippincott stepped off of the Houston Oasis board. And so we now have two new board members, Alexis Podeman and Georgia Lippincott. So I want to congratulate them. We are looking forward to, want to thank the ex-board members for their service, and we look forward to the new board members and what they will be able to do for us. Really quick, Rodney, we have a bunch of people from some other Oasis around here today. So Rodney, real quick, I want you can make your announcement, and then I'm going to finish up.
Hey everyone. Let's do this. It's all right. Hey everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Rodney Heron. I'm on the Oasis Network board that kind of oversees all the different Oasis chapters across the country. But I also run the Oasis Discord, which is a 24/7 online space where we can combine with other Oasis, both at the local level and globally, because we have members from on the Discord all around the globe. I also wanted to plug real quick, if you want to get on the Discord, oasisnetwork.com is the website for the network, and we have a join page on there. Your invite link is there. So it's a very curated space. I moderate it. It's a very safe space, so you can come be yourself. One more thing, we also have a store on that same website where you can buy merchandise, and that supports the network and all the causes and goals that we have across the country. Am I missing anything, Johnny? No. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All righty. Let's see. Oh, the Oasis, Houston Oasis has put out a survey. There's a QR code, I believe, on the back of your, back there at the back. So you can go and take a picture of the QR code, and if you would answer the survey, that would, he's holding it up, that would really help us to be a responsive community. Okay, money. So we're a nonprofit. We rent the space. We pay for rent for the space. We pay rent for a storage unit so we can have all our sound equipment, and we schlep it back and forth every week. We pay our musicians. We pay childcare. So we need money. We also need participation. So we would just be grateful if y'all can give whatever way you can give. There's a QR code, I believe, on the back that you can sign up to do a recurring donation. You can talk to Tim Wise, our treasurer, if you want to do that. We also have a hat at the back if you have a little cash on you today and you would like to drop that in. And then if you want to volunteer, you can talk to a board member or contact us at board@houstondanoasis.org. So that's that over. So we're going to have, any celebrations or concerns? Any birthdays? Somebody got a new job? Anybody especially happy about something? Johnny? Oh, happy birthday. Yay. Yes, yes, we all are thinking about the folks in Los Angeles and the fires. That is, we should, and I think we'll try and get a link up of a place you can donate. That would be a good idea. So anything else? All righty. So we're going to have another quick song from Hank, and then I'll come back with a little MLK remembrance.
Well, thanks, guys, for having me once again. As we all prepare to enter into what can only be described as some interesting times coming up, here's a little song of farewell for everyone. Peace unto you till we meet again. Gone on our ways, spirits in the wind. Peace unto you wherever you may roam. Along the winding road, surely bring you home. Peace unto you. Brush away your tears, trusting in love. Drive away your fears. Peace unto you. You're not the only one. Dark be the hour. Dawn is soon to come. Shine on, keep shining your golden light. Guide us safer shores. Shine on, keep shining long through the night. On further on, further on. Peace unto you. Leave the past behind. Rise with the dawn. Say our last goodbye. Peace unto you till we meet again. Gone on our ways, spirits in the wind. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the wise words of Martin Luther King Jr. are legion. And I could have gone to any number of places. There are the I Have a Dream speech, but I wanted to pull something out that maybe not everybody would have heard. So this is a little selection from a sermon that he gave, one of the last that he gave before he was assassinated. He gave it at the church in Atlanta where he was the minister, Ebenezer Baptist, on February 4th, 1968. It's a little sad to listen to because he talks about his own death in the part that I've, of course, not knowing that 2 months later he would no longer be with us. So, but I think his words are wise, like they always are, and very relevant for today. Every now and then, I guess we all think realistically about that day when we will be victimized with what is life's final common denominator. That's something we call death. We all think about it, and every now and then I think about my own death, and I think about my own funeral, and I don't think of it in a morbid sense. And every now and then I ask myself, what is it that I would want said? And I leave the word to you this morning. If any of you are around when I have to meet my day, I don't want a long funeral. And if you get somebody to deliver the eulogy, tell them not to talk too long. And every now and then, I wonder what I want them to say. Tell them not to mention that I have a Nobel Peace Prize. That isn't important. Tell them not to mention that I have 300 or 400 other awards. That's not important. Tell them not to mention where I went to school. I'd like somebody to mention that day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to give his life serving others. I'd like for somebody to say that day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to love somebody. I want you to say that day that I tried to be right on the war question. I want you to be able to say that day that I did try to feed the hungry. And I want you to be able to say that day that I did try in my life to clothe those who were naked. I want you to say on that day that I did try in my life to visit those who were in prison. I want you to say that I tried to love and serve humanity. Yes, if you want to say that I was a drum major, say that I was a drum major for justice. Say that I was a drum major for peace. I was a drum major for righteousness. And all of the other shallow things will not matter. I won't have any money to leave behind. I won't have the fine and luxurious things of life to leave behind. But I just want to leave a committed life behind. And that's all I want to say. Go in peace, y'all.